We are taught to see China as a monolith, a massive unbroken expanse of red on the map, home to nearly one-fifth of humanity. We see the neon-soaked skylines of Shanghai, the geometric precision of Beijing, and the industrial pulse of the Pearl River Delta. But maps are deceptive. They show us borders drawn by men, but they hide the borders drawn by the earth. If you remove the political lines and look only at the topography, you realize that China is not a continental giant. It is an island. To the east lies the Pacific, a horizon guarded by a chain of islands held by rivals. To the south, a wall of watching jungle. To the west, the highest peaks on the planet. And to the north, a desert so vast it has swallowed entire dynasties. 1.4 billion people are crowded into a sliver of coastal land. Behind them lies an interior that doesn't care for governments or GDP. Yet, to call geography destiny is a simplification. China's history is not merely a story of being trapped by the land, but of a 5,000-year war against it. It is a story of a civilization that has repeatedly attempted to rewrite its own constraints through sheer, brutal engineering. Today, we look past the neon. We look at the geography that keeps a superpower in a cage and the strategic cost of trying to break the bars. The rice trap. In 1935, geographer Hu Huanyong drew a line from Hehe in the north to Tengchong in the south. This line, the Hu Line, remains the most important boundary in Asia. To the east of this line, 94% of China's population lives on just 43% of the land. To the west, the population is comparatively sparse. This is not a political choice, it is a caloric one. In the west, civilization was built on wheat. An acre of wheat provides roughly 4 million calories. But in the Yangtze and Yellow River basins, the land offers rice. Through the labor-intensive process of double cropping, Chinese farmers can extract up to 11 million calories from a single acre. Consider the life of a farmer in the Sichuan Basin. For generations, their existence has been defined by the terrace, layers of mud and water carved into hillsides so steep they seem to defy gravity. There is no heavy machinery here, the land is too vertical. Every calorie is extracted by hand, a cycle of labor that has remained unchanged while skyscrapers rose 500 miles away. China possesses only 7% of the world's arable land, yet it must feed 18% of the world's population. This is the rice trap. The land provides an abundance that allows for a massive population. But that population becomes a material liability the moment the geography shifts. If rainfall patterns move by even a few degrees, or if the soil reaches its chemical limit, the engine stalls. The Loess Plateau. Before the water reaches the rice paddies of the east, it must pass through a landscape that feels like a glitch in the Earth's design. This is the Loess Plateau. It is 640,000 square kilometers of wind-blown silt, soil so fine it feels like flour. In some places, this dust is 300 meters deep. It is technically some of the most fertile soil on Earth, but it is also the most unstable. When it rains, the soil does not just get wet, it collapses. Millions of people once lived in yaodongs, subterranean dwellings carved directly into the yellow cliffs. Entire villages existed beneath the surface of the earth, silent and invisible to the horizon. But this dust is also the curse of the Yellow River. As the water flows through, it picks up millions of tons of this sediment, turning the river into a thick, suffocating sludge. This has made the Yellow River the most dangerous on Earth. Over centuries, the silt has settled on the bottom, raising the riverbed until the water is actually flowing above the surrounding countryside, held in place only by man-made dikes. The people in the valleys below are living under a suspended ocean of mud. It is a geography of constant, quiet tension, a land that is literally washing itself away into the sea. The logistics of the coast. To understand why the interior is so haunting, one must understand the efficiency of the coast. China's economic miracle was built on the Blue Highway. The country has 8 of the world's 10 busiest container ports. Shanghai alone handles over 47 million TEUs, standard shipping containers, every year. This maritime infrastructure is a triumph of modern trade networks. It allows China to bypass its difficult internal geography by moving goods along the water. However, this relies on a global trade system that China does not fully control. While the interior is defined by ancient barriers, the coast is defined by modern vulnerabilities. If the sea lanes were restricted, China would be forced back into its interior, a place that historically has struggled to support a modern industrial state. Tibet's frozen logic. Tibet is often framed as a geographic shield, but its true value is strategic hydrological leverage. The glaciers of the Tibetan Plateau feed the Yellow, the Yangtze, the Mekong, the Salween, and the Brahmaputra. This region is the source of life for nearly half of the human race. The $4 billion Qinghai-Tibet Railway is often cited as a purely military project. The reality is more complex. It was an act of geographic integration. China understands that a region that remains physically isolated will eventually become politically isolated. To hold Tibet, they had to break the mountain. They developed specialized ammonia-based cooling pipes to keep the permafrost frozen under the tracks, preventing the ground from shifting. They built pressurized cabins for passengers to survive the 5,000-meter altitude. But technology is an adaptation, not a victory. At night, on the plateau, the temperature drops so rapidly that the rocks literally crack under the stress. The soldiers and workers stationed at these border posts live on bottled oxygen and processed rations. They are keeping watch over a land that at any moment could simply freeze them out. The northern moat, the Gobi. To the north, the cage is made of heat and stone, the Gobi Desert. It is a massive, high-altitude wasteland that stretches across the border of Mongolia. Historically, this was the source of the nomadic horsemen who could cross the void and strike at the heart of the empire. The Great Wall was a physical response to this geographic vulnerability. Today, the nomads have been replaced by a different threat, the yellow dragon. These are massive dust storms that rise from the Gobi and bury Beijing in a suffocating shroud of silt. Since 1978, China has planted over 66 billion trees as part of the Green Great Wall. It is the largest artificial forest on Earth. Yet, the desert is not a static border. The Gobi continues to migrate south, consuming roughly 3,000 square kilometers of grassland every year. There are places in the Gobi where you can walk for days and find nothing but the ruins of Han Dynasty watchtowers, stubs of mud brick that have survived for 2,000 years because there is not enough moisture in the air to rot them. They are markers of how far the desert has pushed back. The long game. We look at China and see a power that is changing the world. We see the concrete, the high-speed rail, and the artificial islands, and we assume it is permanent. But the great interior remains what it has always been, a wilderness of absence. The Great Wall is now a ruin. The ancient canals are silted over. The high-speed rails will eventually succumb to the rust and the shifting earth. China has spent 5 millennia trying to solve its geography, trying to bridge the deserts, dam the rivers, and conquer the mountains. They have fought the land, and for the moment, they are winning. But geography plays a longer game than empires. The land never agreed to be settled, but history is the story of humans trying anyway. And in the silence of the great interior, the land is simply waiting to see how the story ends.